Well, good afternoon. I got a message asking me to write a dedication to Norma for her 75th birthday. Since I'd known her for a number of years, and I thought about what to write and how to go about it, so I decided that the simple and easy way is just do a video of it. And then that way it could be attached to emails and whatnot, and everybody could see it. I worked for Sears for 21 years, and I was managing their home improvement section, and one day I got called in, and when I got to the boss's office, there was three suits there that I didn't recognize, and the HR lady and the store manager and the assistant, and I thought, this ain't gonna end well. And it just happened to be my 50th birthday. And after a little small talk, they finally sprung it on me. They were going to discontinue all home improvements, therefore my services in that form were no longer needed. In other words, they're going to fire me on my 50th birthday. But since I had 21 years and was staff level and whatnot, I was offered a pretty nice handshake, golden handshake, which I took. I could have stayed with the company by moving to Chicago, but that was the last thing in the world I ever wanted to do was that, move to Chicago. So I took the golden handshake and decided to do what I'd been wanting to do all my life, and that was write, take pictures, fly, and enjoy life. And I had been going to Black Forest Glider Port, flying up there some, and so I bought a lot a quarter mile from the glider port and built a house on it. And had a dark room upstairs in my office and started writing and taking pictures, and truthfully I became an airport bum. I spent about as much time out there as hanging around the glider port as I did something productive. I also delivered airplanes and a few things like that to make a little extra money. But at any rate, there was this lady taking lessons there by the name of Norma Falconer. And she was a school teacher, and when summer came and she wasn't teaching school, they hired her to run the youth camps that they ran, 4 of them each summer there. And she's a very delightful young lady, and always smiling, always had a good word for everybody and fun to be around. And she and I became well acquainted there as employees. I also did some instructing and flew tow planes, and if they needed a pilot, well, they'd call me. If I didn't, well, I'd hang around there and do whatever I could and fly with it whenever I wanted to. But anyway, she and I became buddies there. We hung around together. We kind of had a friendship going. It wasn't, there's nothing untoward at all. She was married, so was I. That was not a part of it. But she is just a fun lady to be around. And we went to several soaring camps together, and this picture here was taken in Leadville, Colorado, at the highest airport highest airport in the nation, 10,000 feet. And this picture was taken after she had completed a cross-country flight out there. I forget now how far, but it was a pretty substantial flight. but later she entered a contest in Hutchinson County, Hutchinson, Kansas, and I crewed for her over there on that flight. It turned out that our birthdays were the same. Well, it's one day apart, but what's one day between friends? So we started celebrating our birthdays each year. And that sort of became an annual event. We'd get together, go someplace, have dinner, and it was a fun thing. And then the glider port closed, and I decided that I wanted to move elsewhere. The Colorado Soaring Association moved to Owl Canyon, and Norma went along to be sort of the manager there, and she and her husband Hal, and I visited up there a few times, but I only saw her on rare occasions. One of the occasions was I was delivering an airplane, and I landed in Eagleville, Missouri, where her parents lived, and she was there, and she needed to ride back to Denver. And so I was going to give her some stick time in the front seat of that Super Cub. On the way back, and she was flying, and we got close to Denver, and realized that they were socked in and going to have to do some instrument flying to get into Arapahoe Airport. So I could probably fly looking over her shoulders, but the problem was managing all the radios and dealing with air traffic control in Denver. And she felt that that was a little bit beyond her level of expertise, and so we had to land, and we circled down and landed in a wheat field and swapped seats and took off and flew on into Arapahoe so she could get her car. But the one retrieve that I can remember was out at Pumpkin Center. Pumpkin Center is in the middle of absolutely nowhere, 50 miles straight east of Colorado Springs. And I got a call on the radio there at Black Forest, Norma's landing out and needs retrieve. Told me where, and 2 miles north of the intersection there. Nothing at the intersection except a restaurant and truck stop and a few houses. And so I drove out there with the trailer, and we went out and loaded the glider. And she had ridden in a balloon and had a hard landing and broke a bone in her foot, and she had a walking cast on. And we were sitting there in that restaurant, and we were the only people, and this truck came up there, and these 2 truck drivers came in and looked around, looked over at us and says, "Who crashed the airplane out there?" And Norma was all, being a school teacher, she had to tell everybody everything. And she said, "Well, it's not crashed, it's a glider, we just took it apart and put it on the trailer." I said, "I was flying it," and I said, "Well, what are you flying it out of here for?" She said, "Well, I was on a cross-country flight and ran out of air." And says, "Sure tore hell out of it, didn't you?" She said, "No, it comes apart like that." And I don't think they were confused, but anyway, we finished our iced tea, and we got up, and I was going over to pay for it, and she started out with that walking cast on, going clunk, a clunk, a clunk. And one of them says, "Broke your leg when you crashed, huh?" She said, "No, I did this in a balloon." And he looked at me and said, "Why don't you keep your old lady at home where she'll get killed?" I said, "We aren't married." And he said, "Smartest thing you never did." And I've always kidded her about that since then. But at any rate, she's my best friend and buddy and pal, and I haven't seen her in several years, and we won't spend this birthday together. I'm visiting my wife's grave in the National Cemetery here at Dallas. She died about 2 months ago, and we couldn't attend the actual burial. We had her funeral in a church in town, but because of the number of people who were being buried and the COVID and all of that, they had stopped all graveside services, and my kids, her kids, and our kids, I'll put it, went out there after the cemetery had finished, but it was 100 degrees, and I was pretty well trashed anyway, so I haven't been to her gravesite yet, but I'm going to go on my birthday. I thought about going November 11th, but rather than fight the crowds, I'd just go on November 3rd, and my daughter said that would be a better day anyway, and I'll get to see her grave for the first time then. But happy birthday, Norma. Wish I could see you again, and I miss you. Bye, darling.